all of a sudden, I just heard this huge vibration, and it was so strong that I actually fell out of my chair.
Not a lot of people can say they've been, business partners for over 25 years. But we stumbled on to something that has changed our life forever.
We actually went down to the bank and we each put $200 in to start this company.
Career fairs, you walk by, you exchange your resume, and you move on. But to be able to sit down for 20 to 30 minutes and make a connection and find out what they're looking for, you just take the relationship to a whole nother level.
I can't tell you how many times we've had the honor of, praying over the phone with these nurses, and even the girls that work for us have that opportunity, and that just takes that relationship to a deeper level.
There's a moment when everything changes.
When a nurse leaves behind what's familiar to answer a deeper calling.
And when a leader makes a decision that doesn't just impact the numbers,
but people, teams, and lives.
Welcome to the Culture Shifters,
where nurses and leaders transform the culture of care.
These are the stories of those who crossed borders,
challenged the system,
and chose to lead differently.
Because changing healthcare starts from within.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Culture Shifters. Yay! So excited to be here. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Lisha Crytzer, and I am one of the co-founders of NurseMatch.
And I am also one of your co-hosts, Kim England, co-founder of NurseMatch.
So again, we are so excited. We cannot believe this day is here. You guys, we've had these mics in a box
for 5 years.
I was dusting them off yesterday. I was like, I can't believe we're going to do this.
I know. So exciting.
So for the first episode, we just want to share with you our backstory, a little bit about how we got started, and why we're still here 25 years later.
And I always say, we always say we started when we were 5.
Absolutely. So let's tell the listeners a little bit about what Culture Shifters is going to be about. So we are, of course, in the business of connecting exceptional nurses with wonderful hospitals across the United States. And our niche has always been Canada. So you will learn more about that in the upcoming episodes. But we want to highlight these amazing stories of our nurses and our clients and the transformation that they experience, both from an organizational standpoint by bringing in these nurses, and just from a personal story of our nurses and their journey and finally getting to the United States. Very heartwarming, inspiring, and very informational. So that's what you can expect to come. But in the meantime, we're going to just kind of give you a little bit of introduction about how we got here today. Does that sound good, Kim?
Sounds good to me.
Well, let's go back. Way back in the time machine. So let's talk about how we met.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for those that don't know, Lisha was actually my boss for many years. And then we, definitely became friends and then business partners. But I actually met Lisha back in 1995. She hired me with a company. It was called HCFS. And I can remember,
Don't be giving you're giving them a plug. No. Joking.
I don't know if they're still around.
No, they served a purpose.
Yes. But I think what's funny is I can remember, back then opening up the Daily Oklahoma or the Sunday Oklahoma, looking for jobs. I had just recently moved up to Oklahoma City and was, applying for jobs. And I remember I got a call. I actually got a call. I want to say it was Lisha's assistant at the time and said, Lisha wants you to interview with her. So I came in and interviewed and, of course, just hit it off with her. And then she hired me. And so, I was definitely very excited to start a new job. And, the first day on the job, I basically shadowed Lisha. She was my manager. And then what we did back then is we worked for a company that we helped patients that were in hospitals find means to pay their medical bills if they, didn't have insurance. And so that first day on the job, I went with Lisha and, just of course, going over to the hospital, meeting everybody. And so I was super excited. And then the second day, we actually had a client that needed our help with a Social Security disability. And so I can remember, going downtown Oklahoma City to the Social Security office, which back then was in the Murray building, federal building, downtown Oklahoma City. And I can remember it was on the first floor, and the client that we had with us, we, sat down to visit with the lady that was going to help us or help him with Social Security disability. We were there a couple of hours with her, and it was getting late in the day. And she said, you know what? She's like, let's finish up and you guys come back in the morning. And I can visually remember her. She was pregnant. I remember she was probably about 6 months, along. And so, we said, okay, we'll, be back. She said, why don't you guys come back, at 9 o'clock in the morning. And so I can remember, going home that night and being so excited and calling my family and, telling them about my day. And I can remember letting my mom and dad know, I'm going to be back at the Social Security office, the next morning, wrapping up, with this client. And so the next morning, rolls around and I went into the office. It was about 8 a.m. And when I got there, Lisha's boss, he said, hey, Lisha is not feeling well today. She's called in, so I'm actually going to have you shadow with somebody else, but we'll probably just have you, here at the office. And so I said, okay. And so, get seated in my little cubicle and, getting ready for the day. And then all of a sudden, I just heard this huge vibration, and it was so strong. It was so strong that I actually fell out of my chair. My coworkers were doing the same thing, and we thought at the time that, a truck or something had hit our building, not knowing that downtown Oklahoma City, a couple of gentlemen, or I shouldn't even say gentlemen, a couple of men decided to do a horrible crime, and they blew up the building downtown Oklahoma City. And, that's where our journey began. But it's not our whole story, but it's something that's very dear to our heart because we should have been there. And I think that is something that, connected us, not only as friends and even sisters, but I think that's where the foundation of this company started.
Yeah. That's our very first big story.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's, interesting because just sitting here listening to you, share that story and think about, all that we've been through. And, I think that what we have really is unique.
Yes.
Not a lot of people can say they've been, business partners for over 25 years. So I know something that we have is very special. But, we've been through becoming mothers together, losses and, just major wins. And, I just feel so thankful and blessed to have you by my side. And I can't imagine doing this life without you. So,
Well, I can say ditto to all of that.
So, after we left that company, I went to work for a hospital, human resources. I did not have an HR background. I just want everyone to know that. And I had a business background, and I was hired to come in and restructure their recruitment team. And there's a big nursing shortage at the time. And so they were trying to do everything possible. And I decided to hire Kim to come along with me. And that was the beginning of the end. We worked for our hospital for a few years and learned a lot. But we stumbled on to something that has changed our life forever.
Yes.
So what do you want to say about that?
Well, like I said, Lisha was my boss, and I was a nurse recruiter at the health system that we worked for in Oklahoma City. And I would, of course, back then we had a nursing shortage just like we do today. And I was always out, at career fairs. But the frustrating part would be is we would, go to all these career fairs, but we never really got to have a one-on-one conversation, with nurses that we so desperately needed. And then at the time, too, is when our organization, was looking for nurses outside their local market. And we decided to go to Canada. And Lisha was always, sending her recruiters out, and we had gone to Canada, came back, and was just talking it up how great it was. And she's like, okay, next one I'm going because I need to see, what you guys are talking about and how great these nurses are. And so I'll let you take over from that piece of the journey.
Yeah, no, I was just sitting here thinking, one of the programs you put together for us at the hospital, because we were so desperate for nurses, was our little employee referral program.
Yes.
And we were giving away cars. If you referred nurses, your name got into a drawing. And then, I remember the whole setup, Kim. It was like handing out the keys and everyone getting in line to see if their key would start the car. Crazy. I still can't believe we did that.
Hey, it worked. We did anything we could do.
And what was the car? It was a Mustang convertible?
Yeah, it was a convertible Mustang.
Yeah. Back in the day, that was the car to have, for sure. Oh, yeah. So no, Kim and the recruiters were in Canada having a great time, leaving me behind. And I finally decided to join. And we went to this career fair. And I think that's kind of when my eyes were opened. And, because we've been talking about, trying to do something on our own for a while. This wasn't the first gig we talked about.
Yes.
And being new moms, it was kind of crazy. We were young. We were both married at the time, and I'm still married. Of course, you've been through a divorce and a single mom, so things are definitely more risky for you. But we just felt like we had really stumbled upon something that was going to be worth the risk. And I'll never forget putting in our notice at the hospital, and everyone was like, "These girls are crazy."
They did. I can actually vividly remember walking into your office and saying, hey, let's just create our own company. I think we can do it better. And like you said, that was the start of this journey. People thought we were crazy. We actually went down to the bank and we each put $200 in to start this company.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what's so fun. I can vividly remember it all.
And Kim was always, a little more optimistic in the beginning and still is to this day. But so I was at the career fair with them, and I'll never forget the nurse that came up to talk to me. We had an amazing conversation. I still remember she was wearing this pink dress. I had her resume, and she was like, "This has been wonderful, but I will never hear from you again." And to be honest, I knew exactly what she was talking about. And to anybody that's ever been in, the field of recruitment, when you're out at career fairs, traveling or whatever, while you're gone, things are still going on at your, organization. And of course, by the time we get back, things are crazy and the resumes literally sit on your desk. And so that spark that you had with that person at that career fair, unfortunately, dies out.
Right.
And, but the nurse is thinking they're not interested. And what we're thinking is I've got other things to do, unfortunately. So when that nurse said that to me, it literally hit me like a ton of bricks because I knew she was right. But then I also knew, since we've been talking about maybe starting a business, this was the missing component.
Yes.
I literally said, I've got to run to the bathroom. I ran to the bathroom, I slammed the door, and I just sat there. And all of these thoughts were just rushing through my mind about creating something that was missing in the market.
Yeah.
And that was an opportunity to sit down and build a relationship with somebody that you seriously want to possibly come and work for you. Because back then, and still to this day, career fairs, you walk by, you exchange a resume, you get what we call their tchotchkes, and you move on. But to be able to sit down for 20 to 30 minutes and have a real interview and make a connection and find out what they're looking for, let them ask questions, you just take the relationship to a whole nother level.
Right.
That by doing that, when you do get home, there's no way you're not going to continue the conversation. And that's what we built. We built an avenue for nurses that we so desperately needed and hospitals desperately needed, an environment to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation.
Yes, we did.
And that's how we got started.
Do you remember the first year, or probably actually the first couple of years, we would actually fly to Canada, get on the plane with the nurses, bring them all the way to the U.S. and hold their hand till they got off the bus.
All kinds of crazy things. But, we learned so much. But I think, too, just to back up a little bit, the Canadian nurse is such a gem and a perfect fit. And it's not for everyone. I mean, this is a personal decision. So, I know there are nurses from the U.S. that go to Canada and vice versa. So, there is this little back and forth. But for us having this niche, it's really just supporting those nurses that have always wanted to come here. Right. And a lot of the nurses that we work with, just for context, are not originally from Canada. They immigrate to Canada and they become Canadian citizens, and then we work with them. However, it's just a beautiful, simple process that so many hospitals didn't even know existed. And so we just saw the beauty in that and wanted to share the good news about how there is a market that's available and there's an interest, and be able to facilitate that entire process has been so much fun, and is what we've been doing for 25 years. So
yes,
in different ways. So
well, and that's what, for the first 10 years, we hosted our career fairs, but then we had so many of our repeat clients that kept coming back, and they're like, oh, we love your nurses, we love your events, but, we need to hire 20, 40, 60 plus nurses. Can you host this event, but just at our hospital? And so that took us to the next phase of NurseMatch.
Right, absolutely. And that was the exclusive events, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So explain what that was about.
Yeah. So the exclusive event where is we would, partner with a hospital and, bring anywhere between 50 to 100 nurses to their location. And it was usually a 2-day event. And so we would tour the community usually on the first day. I remember, going to apartment complexes, we would get these big buses that we would, transport the nurses back and forth, around the community and the hospital. And then the second day, they would get to tour the hospital, and they would also, get to have one-on-one interviews, there with the clinical managers. And so it was amazing time. We used to do, 3 to 5 of those events a year. And then 2020 came along.
Yes. Well, that was quite the pivot for us, for sure.
Yes.
But, I don't think it was necessarily a bad pivot. But I always find myself, especially, since I'm in my 50s now, never say never. And I would always say there's no way I'm ever going to do direct placement. And today, since COVID hit, we had to pivot. We couldn't do this. And we had to find a way to still get the nurses to our hospitals. And it's been a game changer for us. It's allowed us to think a little bit differently about our business. It's allowed us to, hire a team, bring them in to support us. Because a missing component in all of that in the very beginning was, helping them land. So once they get an offer, we would rely on the hospital to make sure that nurse made the journey. Well, it's a difficult process, and the nurse needs a lot more assistance than just licensure and immigration. It's a holistic approach that they need. And that's definitely something that once we started, incorporating that and just enjoying that journey with them and staying with them, not only until they land, but, we stay in touch with them for, the first year, has definitely transformed, I think, NurseMatch in general, for sure.
I would completely agree. And I feel like, we formed so many relationships, in the early days, but I think now we're with that nurse her entire journey. It's from interview all the way to them landing. And then, we stick with that nurse for an entire year, after they land at the hospital, just checking in. And, what we also see is, 4 or 5 years down the road, if that nurse is deciding, she wants to look at another opportunity, or if her spouse, has been transferred somewhere, we have that relationship with them and they always call us back. And I think that is just been the beauty of this business.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, it's what attracted us to this business is we saw the need for connection and relationship. And that is still true. And that is still how we operate on a day-to-day basis. The relationship piece for us is number one, not just with our nurses, but our hospitals and our team as well. And I think that has been the constant theme and what created that spark for us And what continues to drive this business is how to sustain relationship-based recruitment, because that is so important. And that's one thing I feel like how we stand out so much with our nurses is they feel that relationship. They know that we sincerely care about them, and we do mean it when they, are part of our family. It's just such an honor and a privilege to be able to serve them.
I 100% agree. And I even want to mention too, we are a faith-based company, and that is something that has been so important to Lisha and I from day one. And I can't tell you how many times we've had the honor of, praying over the phone with these nurses, and even the girls that work for us have that opportunity. And I so believe that God has blessed our business because of that, because we, gave him our business 25 years ago, and he is so intertwined with our business today. But I think that makes such a difference, and that just takes that relationship to a deeper level with our nurses when they know that, we're praying for them, and they pray for us too, And so that is something that I just have such a heart for these nurses, and what they do on a daily basis. It's just remarkable. I always say that, nurses are just such a gift from God, because, without them, where would any of us be?
Absolutely. It's so funny because, I come from a family, lots of nurses, and, and everyone always asks me, are you a nurse? I'm like, no. I could not do what they do. So, but I do love their hearts, and I'm so happy to serve them in this way. And it's definitely been such a life-changing. I feel so blessed. I don't know how or why God's blessed us so much, but I do feel very thankful. And I don't know, Kim, I sit here and think, if someone would have told me 25 years that we'd be sitting here 25 years later and then doing a podcast, I'm not quite sure I would have believed it. So
I would say the same thing. And it's just been such a blessing to be on this journey with you. And I'm so thankful for you and your family. I think that's what has been just so incredible these last 25 years, is how both of our families have just come together as one, as a family.
Yes.
And I just love that.
Yeah, we've been through a lot together for
We
sure.
We have.
Yeah, and now we have a beautiful team of NurseMatch members, and just such a delight. And if you ever get a chance to work with them, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just so thankful for them and their servant hearts as well. So, yeah, I just am excited to be here. I'm so excited to start interviewing our nurses and our hospitals so we can share their exciting stories. And most importantly, I'm excited it's a privilege to put a light on what we do and the people that we serve. So, Kim, any closing remarks from you?
I would just say I'm so excited. This is our very first episode, and when we get to come back at episode 100 and just celebrate, just because, like Lisha said, we have so many memories and so many stories, and I can't wait for our audience to hear the stories from our nurses and just the journey that they had to get to the U.S. And then just to also hear the stories of our hospitals, how our nurses have just changed their culture. It is so exciting. So I just look forward to more interviews with nurses and clients.
Absolutely. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us on our very first episode of The Culture Shifters. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on The Culture Shifters.
If this story resonated with you,
Share it with someone who needs to hear it.
and if you're a nurse feeling called to something more,
We see you, and we'd be honored to be a part of your journey.
and if you're a healthcare leader committed to stronger,
More sustainable culture, we'd love to connect.
you can learn more and continue the conversation with us at nursematch.com.
Until next time, keep showing up
Keep leading with purpose.
and keep shaping the culture of care.